The dust rose in a slow brown veil as the church bell rang, a sound meant for vows but hollow as a dry well. Folks lined the wooden benches with their hats in their hands, eyes turned toward the aisle that stayed empty. The groom stood alone at the front, boots planted, shoulders squared, jaw set like a fence post driven deep into stubborn ground. He had come early as ranchers do, believing in work, in time, in keeping one's word. He had believed in a bride who did not come. They whispered first, then stared. The sun crept through the church windows and caught on the brass buttons of the sheriff's coat. The sheriff leaned back, a thin smile pulling at his mouth, as if this day was another card laid right where he wanted it. The preacher cleared his throat. The bell fell silent. Outside, a horse snorted and stamped. Inside, the rancher waited, counting breaths, telling himself that people are late sometimes, that trouble has a way of walking in slow boots. Yet even a man who trusts the land knows when a field has gone bare, the bride had run. That word slipped between pews like a snake in dry grass. She had gone before dawn, before coffee boiled, before the town woke. Some said she left a note. Others said she took nothing but her fear. All agreed she was gone. The rancher did not move. He did not shout or beg. He stood and took it the way men take bad weather, with eyes narrowed and heart braced. Knowing the storm does not care how you feel, the sheriff stepped forward then. Boots loud on the boards, badge catching light. He tipped his hat with a mock courtesy that scraped like grit. He said the town had seen runaways before. He said a man ought to choose better. His voice carried, smooth and sharp, and laughter followed it like a pack of dogs. The rancher turned his head and met the sheriff's eyes, steady and cold. He had learned long ago that some men wear law like a coat they borrowed, warm enough for themselves and no one else. The sheriff spoke again, easy as if offering a drink. He said there was a sister. He said it as if a woman were a spare horse kept in the shade. He said the sister was younger, quieter, better suited to learn. The words fell heavy in the church, and the laughter died, replaced by a curious hush. Eyes turned toward the back, where a young woman stood half-hidden, hands folded tight, chin lifted, though her face was pale. She had not planned to stand there. She had come because family pulls harder than pride, because duty can bruise and still be duty. She had heard the whispers and felt them sting. She had lived her life in the long shadow of another, always the one who followed, who fixed, who made do. Her boots were scuffed from work, her dress plain, her hair pinned back with care she did not feel. She looked at the floor, then at the rancher, then away again, as if choosing where to set her feet in a river she had not meant to cross. The rancher's name carried weight in the county. He had built fences where there were none, watered cattle where the land had given up, buried friends without speeches, and kept his word even when it cost him sleep. He knew loss. He knew how fast a promise can crack. When the sheriff offered the sister, the rancher felt something shift, not in his pride, but in his gut. He had not come to trade lives like cards. He had come to marry one woman. Now the world asked him to choose under a watchful sky. The preacher waited, hands trembling. The bell rope swayed with the draft. Outside, the day pressed on, unconcerned. The rancher took one step down from the altar and stopped. He looked at the sheriff, then passed him to the young woman at the back. He saw fear there, yes, but also a steadiness that comes from work done without praise. He saw a spine straightened by years of carrying more than was asked. He saw a person, not a replacement, the sheriff chuckled, low and mean, and said time was money and the town had places to be. He said a wedding could still happen if a man were practical. His words were sweet on the surface and rotten underneath. He had always liked to win in public, to make a show of it. The rancher knew this man. He knew the way the sheriff leaned on people until they bent or broke. He knew that to refuse here would make enemies that had guns and badges. The rancher felt the room breathe. He felt the eyes of the town weigh him. He thought of his land, his cattle, the creek that ran thin in August, the house that waited with its clean table and empty bed. He thought of the woman who had run and the reasons that might have chased her. He thought of the young woman standing with her hands clenched. Offered up like a debt to be paid, he spoke then. Voice low, not for the sheriff, not for the crowd. but for the truth that had a way of clearing the air. He said he would not be mocked. He said he would not buy peace with another person's fear. He said if there was to be a choice, it would be his, made without laughter. The sheriff's smile thinned and a flicker crossed his eyes. Quick as a match struck in wind, the young woman lifted her gaze. Their eyes met for a breath that felt longer than it was. She did not plead. She did not look away. In that moment, something passed between them, not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two people who knew the weight of work and the cost of standing still when the world pushed. The rancher felt it like a hand at his back, not forcing, just steady. Outside, a rider slowed, hooves clopping uneven. A rumor was coming, carried by dust and sweat. Inside, the sheriff leaned in, voice sharp again, warning of trouble, of how things go for men who cross him. He said the town would remember. He said the law would be watching. The rancher nodded once, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement of a storm already forming. The preacher asked if there would be a ceremony. The rancher did not answer right away. He looked at the young woman and then at the open door where sunlight cut a bright line across the floor. He knew that whatever he chose would set his path hard as ruts after rain. He knew that a marriage born of mockery would rot. He also knew that walking away would leave a mark. The sheriff would use again and again. He took a breath that reached his boots. He said the town could keep its jokes. He said he would choose who stood beside him, and he would choose with care. A murmur rippled through the pews. The sheriff straightened, hand brushing his belt, eyes narrowed. The young woman swallowed and nodded once, a small motion that said she understood the stakes even if she did not know the end. The bell rope swayed again as if someone had brushed it. Outside, the rider dismounted, dust hanging thick, a message on his tongue. The rancher stepped toward the door, the sheriff's shadow stretching long across the boards. Behind them all, the empty aisle yawned, a path waiting to be taken or refused. The rancher paused on the threshold, feeling the pull of land, law, and a promise yet to be named, knowing that the choice he made next would light a fuse that could not be put out. The rancher stood in the doorway long enough for the room to feel the stretch of it. Sunlight warmed one side of his face, while the other stayed in shadow, like the land he lived on, half promise and half warning. Outside, the rider cleared his throat, boots grinding gravel. The sheriff's gaze followed the rancher's every move, sharp and measuring. As if this were already a contest he meant to win, the rider spoke low. Meant for the rancher alone, but sound carries in a small town. He said the bride had been seen at first light, heading toward the river trail with a borrowed horse and a look like she was running from fire. He said she did not look back. He said there were tracks that crossed with another set near the cottonwoods, lighter prints that might belong to someone waiting. The words stirred the church like a gust through dry leaves. The rancher nodded once. He had known the bride since she was young, had watched her laugh fade as years piled on her shoulders. He had thought marriage would steady things, that a shared roof and honest work might quiet the restlessness he sometimes saw in her eyes. Now he wondered what fear had finally tipped her into flight, and whether he had missed the signs because the land demands attention every day. Behind him, the young woman shifted her weight. She felt the room turn colder, though the sun was bright. Her name was Rivelin, and she had learned early how to stay small when others grew loud. She had been the one to fix broken hinges, to rise before dawn, to smooth words when tempers flared. She had loved her sister fiercely and silently, and she felt that love pull at her now like a rope stretched too tight. The sheriff stepped closer to the door, blocking half the light. He said runaways make fools of men. He said the town did not need another chase stirring dust and trouble. He said the rancher should think about his cattle, his fences, his standing. His tone was calm, but the threat sat beneath it like a loaded chamber. He liked to remind people who decided when things stayed quiet. The rancher turned back inside. He told the preacher the ceremony would wait. He told the sheriff the town would survive a delay. He told Rivelin she could go home if she wished, that no one would force her to stand where she did not choose. His voice was even, but his eyes held a question he did not speak. Rivelin looked at her hands, then lifted her chin. She said she would stay. She said she would not be used as a joke, but she would not hide either. Her voice shook once and steadied. The rancher felt a tug of respect, small but firm, like the first pull when a fence wire goes taut outside. The rider swung back into the saddle and waited, unsure whose orders to follow. The sheriff watched him with irritation and then waved him off, saying the river could keep its secrets a while longer. The rancher knew that was not true. In this county, secrets had a way of bleeding out into daylight whether men wanted them to or not. They left the church without vows, the bell silent above them. The town gathered on the steps, murmuring, eyes bright with questions. The rancher mounted his horse, the leather creaking familiar and steady. He told Riverland to ride behind him if she wished. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hands where she could keep balance without holding tight. It was a careful distance, one born of caution, not coldness. As they rode, the land opened into fields cut by fences the rancher had set with his own hands. He told her how he had come west with nothing but a hammer and a stubborn streak. He told her how the land had taken friends and given him purpose in return. He did not speak of the bride yet. Riverland listened, the rhythm of the horse easing her breath. She spoke of nights spent mending by lamplight, of learning the creek's moods, of the way fear can live quiet in a house until it decides to shout. They reached the ranch as the sun dipped low, painting the barn red and gold. The house stood plain and solid, a place built for weather. The rancher showed her a room with a clean bed and a window that faced the hills. He said she would have space and time. He said no decisions would be made in the dark. Riverland thanked him, her voice soft but sure. That night, the wind rose. Somewhere beyond the fences, a coyote called. The rancher sat at the table and spread the rider's words out in his mind like tracks in dust. Another set of prints near the river. Someone waiting. He thought of the sheriff's smile and the way power draws to itself those who want to use it. He thought of the bride's fear and the years that might have fed it. He wondered who would gain from her running and who would lose if she were found. Riverland lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She remembered the bride's last look, a flash of apology and relief mixed together. She remembered a night when voices rose behind a closed door and fell silent when she entered. She had learned to read silence as well as sound. Now she wondered what she had not asked, what she had chosen not to see. Morning brought dust and a visitor. The sheriff rode in without knocking, his horse lathered as if he had come a hard way. He spoke of order and peace. He spoke of how rumors grow when men hesitate. He said the rancher's choice at the church had set tongues wagging. He said Riverland's presence would confuse people. He said confusion leads to mistakes. The rancher listened, hands resting on the table. He asked the sheriff if the law would be searching the river trail. The sheriff smiled thinly and said resources were thin. He said some paths are better left alone. Riverland stood in the doorway and felt the air tighten. The sheriff looked at her then, eyes assessing, and she felt like land being measured for sale. After he left, the rancher saddled a second horse. He said he would ride the fences and check water. Riverland asked to come. He hesitated, then agreed. The land rolled out before them, wide and honest. At the creek, they found a ribbon torn from a dress snagged on a thorn. Riverland recognized the stitching. Her chest tightened. They followed the trail until it crossed with another, just as the rider had said. The second set of prints led toward the old mill road, a place folks avoided since the floods took the bridge. The rancher studied the ground, jaw set. He said someone knew where to wait. Riverland felt the weight of it settle, the sense that this was not only a family matter, but a test the town had been waiting to see him fail. They turned back as clouds gathered, the air thick with coming rain. From the ridge, they saw a figure watching from a distance and then slipping away. The rancher reined in, eyes narrowed. Riverland's heart beat loud in her ears. Whoever it was knew the land well. As they rode home, thunder rolled. The rancher said the sheriff would not like a search that did not answer to him. Riverland said some truths do not ask permission. They shared a look that held more than words, a shared understanding that the path ahead was narrowing fast. That night a lantern burned late in the house. The rancher wrote a note and sealed it. Rivalen watched the flame flicker and wondered what promises cost when they are kept against the grain of power. Outside, rain began to fall, washing tracks from the dust and leaving only questions behind. Rain worked the dust into dark paste and left, the world smelling clean while trouble stayed dirty as ever. The rancher watched water slide off the porch roof in steady lines, thinking about tracks that were already gone. The hills looked soft under low clouds, but he knew the land could hide a man same as it could feed him. He kept seeing that ribbon on the thorn, bright against gray weather, like a warning tied on purpose. Rivalen moved quiet through the kitchen, setting coffee near his hand without asking if he wanted it. She had slept little, he could tell by the tightness around her eyes, but she carried herself like a person who refuses to fold. When she sat across from him, the table between them felt like a boundary both of them respected. He slid the sealed note toward her. "I wrote it for the preacher," he said. "If anything turns sideways, he needs to know I did not abandon your sister. I did not sell her off. I did not take your name in my mouth like a bargain." Rivalen touched the note as if it were fragile. "The preacher will speak," she said, "but the sheriff speaks louder." That was the truth sitting plain on the table. In this county, a badge could turn lies into law with enough witnesses willing to nod. The rancher had made enemies just by standing still at the church door and refusing to be laughed into a decision. He had seen the sheriff's eyes when the town went quiet, that quick anger under a practiced smile. A man like that did not forget being denied in public. By noon, the rain eased. A ranch hand named Iron Boone came in from the barn, hat dripping, face tight. "There's riders on the south fence," he said. "Not our men. 3 of them. They kept to the trees like they did not want to be seen, but they wanted to be noticed." The rancher set his cup down slow. "Did they cut wire?" "Not yet," Iron Boone said. "But they looked. One had a deputy coat." Rivalen's stomach turned. She thought of the figure on the ridge, the way it vanished like smoke. The sheriff was not searching for her sister the way folks search when a life is missing. He was circling, laying pressure, seeing what would crack. They rode out anyway. The rancher in front, Rivalen behind, Iron Boone flanking. The ground was soft, hooves sinking, but the trail was still readable where grass bent and mud held shape. Near the south fence they found fresh prints again, not deep, made by a careful horse. The rancher crouched, fingers hovering over the impression. He did not touch it, as if the ground might speak if he listened hard enough. "They came here to measure you," Iron Boone muttered. "See if you'll chase? See if you'll swing first." The rancher stood and scanned the trees. "Let them watch. I am not giving them what they want." Rivalen's voice came out thin. "What do they want?" The rancher did not answer right away. He kept his gaze on the tree line. "They want me to look like a man who cannot control his own house. They want me to look desperate. They want me to make one bad move so the sheriff can call it justice." A day later, town news reached the ranch on the back of a peddler's wagon. The peddler, Brass Kellen, had a loud laugh and quicker eyes. He sold nails, sugar, lamp oil, and gossip, and he always got paid. He said the sheriff was telling folks the rancher had driven the bride away with a hard temper. He said the sheriff claimed the rancher had taken Rivalen as a spiteful replacement. He said the sheriff hinted that the bride had stolen something on her way out. Rivalen went cold. "Stolen what?" Brass Kellen shrugged, enjoying the fear he stirred. Sheriff did not say, but he said the law would find out. After the wagon rolled on, Rivalen sat on the porch steps, hands clenched hard. "My sister would not steal," she said, though doubt crept in like wind through a crack. She had seen her sister change in the last year, seen worry chew at her. She had also seen her sister hide things in her apron pocket, small slips of paper, folded tight. Rivalen had never asked. The rancher sat beside her, leaving space. "The sheriff does not need her to steal," he said. "He needs folks to believe she did. Belief is a rope. Once it is around your neck, truth becomes hard to breathe." That evening, Rivalen walked to the barn to clear her mind. The air inside smelled of hay and leather. A lantern hung from a nail, its flame steady. Iron Boone was there, fixing a harness with hands that looked like they were carved from work. He did not look up at first. You ever see the sheriff do wrong? Rivelin asked. Iron Boone's needle paused. I seen him do what he wanted, he said. He calls it right because he says it is. Rivelin swallowed. Why does he hate the rancher? Iron Boone's eyes lifted then. Because your sister was supposed to bind two things together, land and law. The sheriff liked the idea of being invited into this ranch without needing to ask. Rivelin's breath caught. Invited how? Iron Boone leaned back, choosing his words like a man avoiding barbed wire. Marriage is not only hearts in a church, it is property. It is who signs papers. It is who sits at tables. Your sister running did not only embarrass the sheriff, it ruined a plan. Rivelin left the barn with her thoughts spinning. She went to her room and opened her small bag. Inside was a worn comb, a plain Bible, and a folded letter she had carried for years, never mailed. It was from her mother, written before sickness took her. The words were simple, but one line burned in Rivelin's mind tonight. Guard your name, because some men will use it like a key dot. The next morning, a rider came hard down the lane, horse foaming. It was the same messenger from the church, a young man with a wine-burned face named Flint Mercer. He dismounted and handed the rancher a slip of paper. Telegraph from town, Flint said. From the station. The rancher read it once, then again. His jaw tightened. The sheriff filed a notice, he said. He claims your sister is wanted for questioning. He is telling folks she may be armed and dangerous. Rivelin's knees went weak with shock and anger. She is not dangerous, she said. She is scared. That is why his words are poison, the rancher said. They turn fear into a crime. Flint Mercer shifted, uneasy. Sheriff told me to bring you a message too, he said. He says you should come in. He says if you cooperate it will go easier. The rancher looked at Flint, then at Rivelin. Easier for who? He asked. Flint did not answer. He did not need to. The rancher folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. Tell him I will come to town when I choose, he said. Not when he snaps his fingers. After Flint rode off, Rivelin paced the yard. If the sheriff calls her dangerous, she said, voice breaking, someone will hurt her. The rancher's voice stayed steady. Not if we find her first? They prepared without fanfare. Iron Boone saddled horses. The rancher checked supplies, not too much, not too little. Rivelin filled canteens and wrapped bread in cloth. She did not ask if she could ride with them this time. She simply did it like a person claiming her own feet. Before they left, a wagon creaked up the lane. A woman sat on the seat, reins in hand, face set like she had made hard choices before. Her name was Mercy Rourke, the midwife who had delivered half the county and buried the other half secrets. She climbed down and looked Rivelin up and down, not unkindly, but sharp. I heard the sheriff's story, Mercy Rourke said. It stinks. Rivelin felt relief like a warm hand. Do you know anything? She asked. Mercy Rourke glanced toward the road as if expecting eyes. I know your sister came to me 2 nights before the wedding, she said. She asked for something to help her sleep. Her hands shook. She said she was being watched. Rivelin's throat tightened. By who? Mercy Rourke's mouth went flat. She did not say. But she asked me where the old mill road meets the river trail. She asked if anyone could hide there until morning. The rancher's gaze sharpened. Did you tell her? I told her the truth, Mercy Rourke said. That road is dangerous in weather, not because of water, but because men use it when they do not want to be seen. Rivelin gripped the wagon rail. Why would she go anyway? Mercy Rourke's eyes softened, just a little. Because she was more afraid of staying. The rancher thanked Mercy Rourke and offered to escort her back. She refused. I can handle a road, she said. But you handle that sheriff. He is not only hunting your bride. He is hunting your standing. They rode toward the old mill road under a sky that could not decide if it wanted sun or storm. The land looked calm, but Rivelin felt the air prick with threat. Every tree seemed like it could hide a watcher. Every crow call sounded like a signal. Near the cottonwoods, Iron Boone raised a hand. The rancher halted. In the mud beside the trail, half washed by rain but still there, was a mark Riverlin recognized. A small carved token made from bone, tied with twine, the kind her sister used to make as a girl. It lay where only someone who knew her would place it. Not dropped in panic, but set like a message, Riverlin slid off her horse and picked it up. Her fingers trembled. On the bone, a single word was scratched, uneven but clear. Trust. Riverlin's heart thudded hard. Trust who, she wondered, when the sheriff wore a badge and smiled like a knife, and when her sister's trail split into shadows again. She looked up, and on the ridge above the cottonwoods, a figure stood watching, still as a post. Then it turned and walked away, slow and certain, as if it expected them to follow. The figure on the ridge did not hurry, and that calm cut deeper than a chase ever could. The rancher felt it settle in his chest, the sense of being led rather than pursuing. He lifted a hand to Iron Boone, signaling patience. Riverlin held the bone token tight, its edges pressing into her palm as if to anchor her. Trust, it said. Trust was a word that asked for more than it gave. They followed at a careful distance, horses stepping soft where the ground allowed. The trail bent toward the old mill road, the broken bridge hidden by willows and mud. Clouds stacked low again, and the air tasted like metal. Riverlin kept glancing up, afraid the watcher would vanish and afraid it would not. When the figure finally slipped behind the trees, the rancher reined in. "We go on foot," he said. "Horses will give us away." Iron Boone nodded and tied the reins. Riverlin slid down, knees stiff. The woods closed in, damp and quiet. Every snap of twig sounded like a shout. They moved slow, eyes working. The rancher read the ground, the way a bent fern could speak of a boot. The way a broken spiderweb meant passage not long ago. They reached the mill road where the earth dropped away toward the river. The bridge lay broken, planks tilted like loose teeth. On the far side, a small fire burned low behind rocks, its smoke tucked close to the ground. The rancher crouched and held his breath. Riverlin's heart hammered so loud she feared it would carry. A voice drifted across, not loud but steady. "You came?" Riverlin recognized it before her mind did. Her sister stepped into view, hair pulled back, eyes bright with a mix of fear and resolve. She raised her hands to show she meant no harm. Relief washed through Riverlin so fast it made her dizzy. She took a step, and the rancher's hand caught her sleeve, gentle but firm. "Wait," he whispered. "Something is wrong." Her sister's gaze flicked past them, just for a blink. Riverlin saw it and froze. From the trees above the road, a shape shifted, another and another. The rancher's jaw set. The sheriff did not hunt alone. Iron Boone's hand slid toward his belt and stopped. The rancher shook his head. This was not a place for sudden moves. The fire crackled. Riverlin's sister swallowed. "They told me you would come," she said. "They said if I stayed put, no one would get hurt." Riverlin's breath caught. "Who told you?" Her sister's eyes slid to the ridge again. "Men who said they were keeping the peace." The sheriff's voice carried then, smooth as oil on water. "There we are," he said, stepping into view with 2 deputies fanning out behind him. His coat looked darker in the damp, his badge dull. "Family reunion at a dangerous spot? Lucky we arrived in time?" The rancher stood and showed his hands. "You let us," he said. "You watched from the ridge." The sheriff smiled without warmth. "I protect the county. I watch a lot of things." Riverlin moved forward despite herself. "You lied about her," she said. "You called her dangerous." The sheriff shrugged. "Fear makes people do foolish things. Running looks like guilt to folks who do not know better." Her sister flinched. "You told me to trust you," she said, voice shaking now. "You said you would clear it all." "I said we would talk," the sheriff replied. "Talking is what we are doing." Iron Boone shifted, boots scraping. A deputy's hand tightened on a rifle strap. The air felt thin. The rancher's mind raced. He saw the plan now, neat and cruel. Bring the bride out where the law could stand tall, paint the rancher as reckless, paint Riverlin as complicit, tighten the net. "Let her cross," the rancher said evenly. "Let her come home." The sheriff chuckled. Home is a flexible word. She will come to town. Answer questions. Clear the air? Rivelyn's sister shook her head. You said I would not be paraded. The sheriff's eyes hardened. I said many things to get you to stop running? Rivelyn felt something break open in her chest, a clean fury. She stepped to the edge of the drop. If you touch her, she said, the whole county will know how you got her here. The sheriff leaned closer, voice low. Careful. Accusations can boomerang. Before Rivelyn could answer, a rock clattered from the trees on the far side. Another voice called out, rough and urgent. Sheriff. A man stepped from the brush, mud on his trousers, breath hard. It was Flint Mercer, the messenger. His eyes darted between faces. You said I was to wait, he said. You did not say you were bringing guns to a family talk. The sheriff's smile thinned. Go home, boy. Flint Mercer swallowed. I saw Mercy Rourke on the road, he said. She told me to remember what I saw at the station last night. The sheriff's head snapped toward him. What did you see? Flint's hands shook. A ledger, he said. Names, payments, not for cattle. Silence fell heavy. Rivelyn's sister stared at the sheriff, understanding dawning like cold water. You were watching me, she said. You were afraid I would talk? The sheriff stepped forward. Enough. The rancher moved at the same time, placing himself between the sheriff and the sisters. His voice stayed calm, but there was iron under it. This ends without blood, he said. You will let her go. A deputy shifted his weight. Another glanced at the ledger Flint had mentioned, as if it might be written on the air. The sheriff's eyes flicked, measuring loyalty like a man counting coins. From the far bank, Mercy Rourke's voice rang out, clear as a bell. She stood with two townsfolk behind her, faces set. I came to watch, she said. I brought witnesses. The sheriff laughed once, sharp. Witnesses to what? To the law forgetting itself, Mercy Rourke said. And to a man trying to make a family pay for his plans. Rivelyn's heart raced. The town was not supposed to be here. The sheriff had not counted on this. The rancher felt the shift, subtle but real, like wind changing before rain. Thunder rolled, closer now. The river surged against the broken bridge. Rivelyn's sister edged forward, eyes never leaving the sheriff. I will not go with you, she said. I will not be quiet. The sheriff's hand twitched. The deputies looked to him, waiting. The rancher held his ground. Iron Boone stood ready, not to strike, but to stand. Flint Mercer swallowed and lifted his chin. Lightning split the sky, white and sudden. For a heartbeat, everyone was frozen in stark light, faces revealed, choices bare. The rancher felt the moment crest, the brink where everything could tip. Decide, Mercy Rourke said into the hush that followed. Because this river is rising, and so is the truth. The sheriff's gaze moved from face to face, calculating, anger warring with caution. Rivelyn gripped her sister's hand at last, their fingers locking tight. The fire sputtered and died in the rain, leaving only the sound of water and breath. No one moved. And in that held breath, with thunder echoing and the bridge groaning under the river's push, the county waited to see which way the law would fall. The sheriff broke the silence first, and the sound of his voice felt thinner than before. He glanced at the river, then at the people who had gathered without his permission. He weighed the ground like a gambler counting losses. Thunder rolled again, closer, and rain began to fall in hard drops that flattened dust and made the world honest. The rancher did not move. He stood like a post driven deep, steady enough that others could lean on him. Step aside, the sheriff said, but it was a habit more than a command now. Mercy Rourke lifted her chin. No, she said. This stops here. The deputies shifted, uncertain. One of them, a broad man with a scar along his jaw, looked at the river and then at the ledger Flint Mercer had described, as if he could see it hanging between them all. Sheriff, he said, careful, maybe we should hear them. The sheriff's eyes flashed. I am the law. The rancher answered without raising his voice. The law serves people. It does not trap them. Rivelyn felt her sister's hand tremble in hers. She squeezed back, steadying both of them. I will tell it plain, her sister said, voice carrying over the rain. You watched me because I saw you taking payments at the station. I heard names. I knew if I stayed, you would make me disappear quiet. So I ran. A murmur moved through the gathered townsfolk. Mercy Rourke nodded once as if a piece had slid into place. She came to me shaking, she said. Not because of her groom. Because of fear. The sheriff took a step forward and stopped when Iron Boone shifted to block him. The deputies did not move to help. The sheriff looked at them, searching for the old obedience. He did not find it. Flint Mercer swallowed and spoke again, louder now. I saw the ledger, he said. I saw names I recognized. I can swear to it. The river surged, a plank from the broken bridge snapping free and tumbling away. The sound cut sharp through the rain. The sheriff's shoulders sagged just a fraction, the way a man does when he knows the hand is lost. He straightened again, pride stubborn as stone. You think this ends me, he said. You think the town will turn? Mercy Rourke stepped closer. The town already has, she said. You forgot something. People talk when they are afraid. They talk louder when they stop being afraid. The rancher extended his hand, palm open, not a threat but an offer. Let her cross, he said. Walk away. Face what you have done without dragging others down. For a long breath, the sheriff stood there, rain plastering his coat, eyes fixed on the open hand. Then he laughed, a brittle sound. He turned and signaled his deputies. We are done here, he said, though it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. The deputies hesitated. The scarred man stepped to the side. Another followed. One by one, they made space. The sheriff stared at them, disbelief flickering across his face. He turned away at last and walked back toward the trees, alone. No one stopped him. No one cheered. The rain swallowed his retreat. Rivellin's sister crossed the broken bridge carefully, stepping where the planks held. The rancher moved to steady her, then stopped himself, letting her take the last step on her own. When she reached the near bank, Rivellin pulled her into an embrace that shook them both. Relief came in waves, leaving them weak and laughing through tears. They rode back to the ranch together, slower this time, the storm easing behind them. Mercy Rourke and the others followed for a while and then turned back, carrying the story toward town where it would grow legs and walk. The rancher felt the weight lift from his chest with each mile. The land looked different, as if it had been waiting at the house. Dry clothes and hot food waited. Iron Boone built up the fire and set boots near it. Flint Mercer hovered, unsure of his place, until Rivellin's sister thanked him. He blushed and smiled. A young man who had found his courage and did not yet know what to do with it. That night, the sisters talked until the fire burned low. The bride spoke of the station, of ledgers kept hidden, of how the sheriff had pressed her with smiles and warnings. Rivellin listened, anger cooling into resolve. The rancher listened too, learning the ways power twists when left unchecked. Morning brought a clear sky and news from town. The ledger had been found. Mercy Rourke had stood in the square with witnesses. The sheriff had been relieved of his badge by those he once commanded. The county breathed easier, as if a tight belt had been loosened. Days passed. The rancher rode fences and mended wire. Rivellin worked beside him, learning the land not as a shadow, but as a partner. Her sister rested, then began to help where she could, strength returning with each honest task. The rancher watched Rivellin laugh in the sunlight, watched the way she spoke to animals and listened to people. Something quiet and sure took root. One evening, they sat on the porch as the sky turned gold. The rancher spoke carefully. I will not ask you to stand in anyone's place, he said. I will not trade one promise for another. But I have chosen you, Rivellin, not because you were offered, but because you stood when it mattered. Rivellin felt warmth spread through her, steady and real. I choose you too, she said. Not as a spare. As myself. They did not rush. Time did what time does best, smoothing rough edges, proving truth through days and nights. When they married, it was small and honest. The bell rang and did not echo hollow. Mercy Rourke stood witness. Iron Boone smiled. Flint Mercer tipped his hat. The ranch prospered, not because luck turned, but because work met fairness. The land answered care with yield. Rivellin's sister found her own path, free of fear, her name guarded and strong. Sometimes when dusk fell, the rancher and Rivellin would walk to the fence and look toward the river. They did not forget the storm that brought them together. They remembered it as a lesson that courage can be quiet, that love chosen freely stands firmer than any bargain, and that a community, when it decides to see clearly, can set itself right. The wind moved through grass, carrying the smell of rain far off. The rancher took Rivellin's hand. The land stretched wide before them, open and true, and for the first time in a long while it felt like the future had room to breathe.